Yes, hi everyone and welcome to our next presentation. My name is Daniel Thorsson, covering the IT sector here at ABG in Sweden. The next presenter will be CAG Group with CEO Åsa Landén Ericsson. So I welcome you to start your presentation for some 20 minutes, and then I will end up with a few minutes Q&A.
Thanks a lot, Daniel, and welcome to everybody who's listening in. My name is Åsa Landén Ericsson, and I've been the CEO of CAG since March 2018, so almost 3.5 years. You can move on to the next slide, and I'm going to jump right into just giving you a brief overview of what our history looks like. As you know, probably CAG is such a magical mix of a stable IT consulting company with broad and cutting-edge expertise within several areas within IT. And last year, 2020, our revenue was 533 million Swedish kronor, with the profitability of 8.4% adjusted for acquisition-related costs mainly. And as we speak, we have roughly 375 employees, centered mostly in the Stockholm area, but also in Uppsala and Linköping and other defense-related locations, I should say, like Enköping and Krokom, close to Östersund. We've also been paying out dividends for a long time. And I'll give you also, if you move on to the next slide, Daniel, I'll give you a reason for why I think that you made a good choice listening in to us today. Why CAG as an investment? Well, we think we have a really well-balanced sector mix, especially maybe after the acquisitions that we made in this year. We've been focused on the public sector for a long time, so we have roughly 50% of our revenue in the public sector, whereof defense is slightly over 20%, and that's maybe something that sticks out a bit. We are very strong in the defense sector, I would say, and that's for many reasons a sector that we believe will continue to develop well over the next many years, actually. We also balance our revenues as a pure, IT consulting company with more stable, often 3-year agreements in our IT service operations business. So that's more of a recurring revenue business model, which is kind of nice to have. It gives more visibility. And regarding the IT service operations revenues, it's mostly within the banking and finance sector and also some other service companies like legal outfits and so on. We have fantastic customers within the sector, and I'll come back to that a bit later on. Also, it's a profitable sector for us. We also have, as I said in the introduction, cutting-edge expertise in very interesting technology areas, such as cybersecurity, where we are active both in the defense sector and the civilian society, private companies. We run secure IT service operations, as I mentioned, with recurring revenue. We're very heavy, I would say, on systems development, and by that I mean .NET within the Microsoft stack, Java, also very strong in testing and test automation. And one of our acquisitions this year was a company within the BI and analytics space where we were already somewhat active. And that's also a very interesting area, given the explosion, I would say, of data-driven business models for the customer sector. And cloud solutions, of course, they tie into our IT operations. Looking at CAG as an investment, we realized that our organic growth is important, but also we are an M&A-driven company. Of course, we grow by making acquisitions in addition to organic growth. And we're looking, I would say, pretty strong financially. We have a strong balance sheet. We have a long history of stable dividend payouts, and we have an ambition to increase those. We have a good structure and company culture. By that, I mean that we have at present 9 independent subsidiaries. So I usually say when it comes to M&A, if you're a consulting outfit looking for a new home with CAG, you can as we say in Swedish, you can both have the cake and eat it. That is, you can run your company mostly independently, but you still get lots of support when it comes to frame agreements, marketing, financial support, and so on from CAG. And we're also very proud of our institutional owners that I have a slide on later on, and our high share of employee ownership. And I, of course, follow myself the pilot school, so I'm pretty invested in CAG, and I'm happy about that. Okay, you can go on to the next slide, and I'll give you a very brief, you might have read this already, but our Q2 this year, we had a turnover of 172 million Swedish, which was an increase of almost 23%. 16% was acquired and 6.6% organic. And admittedly, we did face, a COVID quarter, if I may say so, of last year. 2020 Q2 was maybe the weakest quarter, but still for us pretty strong organic figure. And we are also very happy with the margins that we showed, which in fact is over 2 percentage points higher than last year if you disregard the effect of the reduced employer contributions that the government put in place for all Swedish companies last year. And excluding that, we haven't received any money for whatever it's called, korttidspermitteringar, the reduction of work at all. So an adjusted margin of 9.7% from Q2. And that also translated into an increased profit per share. And if we just look briefly at the next slide, Daniel, we can then see that for the first half year of 2021, we had a turnover in 333 million SEK, which was an increase of 18%. And given that we had a slightly weaker first quarter of the year, the margin is a bit lower at 8.9%, but still a very good increase over last year, and an increased profit per share as well. And these numbers are, of course, in our quarterly report if you should wish to read that in more detail. Just to give you a feeling for the events that happened during the quarter, we can mention that, on the picture to the right, you see the CEO of our IT operations unit, Johan Sundbo, and Linus Westling, who is the CEO of LC24, that we acquired coming into CAG on July 1st. We're very happy. It's a small acquisition, but they fit us really well, so we're really happy about that. And this is something that happened in April, and we're still very proud of the fact that our CEO of our cybersecurity company, Engvall Security, led the Swedish national team to victory in the world's largest national cybersecurity competition, Locked Shields. So since we are presenting at ABG, I have to mention that Sweden actually beat Norway in this competition, which is not easy, so we're happy. We also took an important project for us that was led by our newly acquired business intelligence unit, now within CAG Detta. And that was a project with Mathem, a Swedish food retailer, online food retailer, for a performance management platform that's budgeting and planning and financial reporting. And that's a partner software that we work with. So that's a very fun project at a very interesting customer, where we, of course, hope to add lots of value to their business. We had a prolongation of a frame agreement with Finansinspektionen. And we also actually, this is a very current issue, the environment, of course, and the climate, and we certified the parent company CAG Group and 2 of our subsidiaries according to the environmental standard 14001. So that's some of the events that happened during the quarter. But I am going to talk a little bit about what we do also and for whom we do it. So exactly, we can look briefly at this side just as an introduction. I already mentioned some of these segments that are important to us: banking and finance, e-health, defense and cybersecurity, and also retail and services, where we now have actually 18% of our revenues. It's been increasing in importance since we, on January 1st, acquired a company called Ateles, which is active in the e-commerce space. So that's also something that we're pleased about. It's been a tough ride over the past few years for the e-com businesses, with lots of opportunities, but also with COVID, something that's had to, take into account that some customers have had to close down and so on. But very interesting segment. So if we go to the next slide, I actually brought with me an illustration of the breadth of our customer base. And I can point out, for example, in the financial segment, Fjärde AP-fonden, one of our owners, actually, clients. We have Nasdaq, of course, many portfolio managing outfits in the financial sector, and also some of the actually larger venture capital companies, but also then the major banks like SE-banken and Handelsbanken. If we look for a few customers within the industrial segment, it's nice to be able to point out Xylem, for example, which works with, among other things, with water solutions, so helping to the environment to improve, and also Profoto, which is a company that was newly listed and is doing really well, so that's kind of fun. Looking at the e-commerce space, you find, for example, Boots, the British pharmacy chain that's also very active in Norway. It's a blue chip customer of ours. And also Kinto, which is Toyota's solution for car sharing, is a good customer of ours that we're proud to be working for. Looking a little bit at the public sector, I can mention, if you look in the lower left corner, Tillväxtverket, which has been a customer of ours for a long time, and where it's been very busy this past year, building out and adapting the systems that actually regulate the COVID-related state subsidies that have been given out to companies. Of course, the business rules for these subsidies and the process and has to be refined, and that gives us a lot of work on the IT side. So that gives you maybe a bit of more of a feeling for what we do for the customers. I'll come a little bit back to that in a while, but I thought we should glimpse at the next slide, which gives you a brief overview of these segments that I've been talking about. So you see roughly half of it in the public sector, and you see the importance of defense. Sorry, it's not translated, but Försvarets defense there, middle pie. We could actually move on to the next slide. And as you understood in the introduction, we have a pretty broad technology offering that goes across these customer verticals that we work with. IT management is maybe a little bit of a fluffy term, but most of the work within digitization or digitalization of manual processes, for example, where you have to, you have to look at the process that you want to automate or digitize in a professional way. That's something that we can help the customer to do. And we also do lots of work as project managers or agile leaders, as is often called, the new way of running things a little bit more in an agile way. In the defense sector, we do lots of, Swedish is often called beställarstöd, but also a term, it's systems engineering, where we look at the requirements for acquiring, for example, a material systems like an air defense system, or it can be an IT system too. What does the customer want to acquire? How do we specify that? And then plan out everything from actually acquiring the system, implementing it, maintaining it, and also decommissioning it. So the whole life cycle, it's something that we do quite a lot of. In systems development, I think I already mentioned this, .NET, Java, testing, automation, integration. And within IT service operations, I should not forget to mention that not only is this office-related IT services, it's also application management of financial expert systems like the portfolio management system SimCorp Dimension, which maybe some of you listening in might use. We have also launched the past year something called the Security Operations Center, and that's a nice synergy between our cyber defense unit and our IT operations. And that's a more offensive, proactive cybersecurity surveillance service, you can say, that is often tied into the fact that we already manage customers' IT services, like the Wi-Fi's and the fixed networks and the related equipment and software. This is a more proactive way of trying to make sure that you don't get IT attacks. Training is a very small business. It's mostly related to agile project management frameworks and test automation. So just to finish off with a few remarks, as you know, we are mainly a consultant company. We're active in the IT space, which is seeing, lots of competition over available personnel, recruits out there. So it's very important for us to be a great place to work. And we've been working with the company Great Place to Work for a few years and have a very good score, and not actually a higher score during the COVID year than we had before. So we've done at least something right to keep our employees happy and productive over this past year. And we are a very earnest company, I would say, with very strong values. We have our independent subsidiaries, and we make sure that our employees feel that they are valuable to us, they're seen by the management, and they're cared for. So our values is competent, caring, and we have a long-term value perspective. We have these in Swedish, really, so kompetent, omtänksam, och långsiktig, which is a sign in itself of our culture, I would say. Okay, the next slide, because I think despite trying to be quick here, the time is very short, and I just wanted to show this slide, which we put together before we listed the company in December 2018. It's been unchanged since then, and it just goes to show that these trends that drive our market, I would say, they are very long-term trends, and they're not going to go away. So despite, both public and private institutions and companies have been working with digitalization, automation for a long time, there's so much left to do, so much left. One project, for example, that we do with Skolverket is digitala nationella prov, digital national tests for students. That it's not done yet is a sign of that this trend is here to stay for quite a long time. Business-driven IT, I think it's very exciting to tie together, for example, e-commerce and business intelligence and analytics and recommendations, and with our systems development and cybersecurity area. So these trends are here to stay, and my message here is that there's a lot left to do in this market. So we're here for the long term. Just 2 brief slides left. I can't resist to just point out, I mentioned we're very proud of our institutional owners. Our chairman of the board, i.e. my boss, though, is the founder, you can say, of CAG, and of the company that's C in the name. He still owns a bit over 20%, Bosse Lindström. But we also have with us Creades, a highly blue chip successful investor. We're very proud of that. And Nordea Småbolagsfond that came to join us when we listed the company, and also clients who joined a little bit afterwards. And in addition to this, as I said before, the names that you see on the list, and my name is slightly below the 10 largest, is our employees in the company, and that's of course very important to us too. We like to be engaged in the company. And I'm going to finish off with just a remark on the future. So our plan, of course, is to keep working on M&A, keep working on innovation, put a lot of effort actually into organic growth. Recruiting is a tough task, but we're going to do our utmost to attract and retain employees and try to stick out so that we get the best recruits. We're very experienced consultants, so we need to be good at it. We also want to develop our recurring revenue business, of course, by complementing the services that we do within IT operations primarily, like the security operations center, private cloud, and services like that. And also keep focusing on having an efficient machine, I would say, on the consulting side, utilization, sales, pricing. And of course, to do things like this, to be active in our internal, external communications, and not least also make sure that we get across that we actually contribute to a sustainable working environment and to a positive effect on the climate and the environment. And our values are very long-term and earnest, I would say. So that's it. Maybe did I manage to hit my 20 minutes, more or less? More or less.
Yes.
So Daniel, I guess it's your turn.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Åsa. That was a great presentation. I think we have a few minutes left for some questions from my side. If I start off with, we see many signs of the IT services sector really accelerating post-COVID and also post the summer now, short term. From companies, and we see that from market research agencies as well. What do you really see in the current market? How is demand? Is it strong, or how do you find it?
Yeah, we have a positive view of the market. We can see that there's lots of interesting projects and lots of requests from our customers for more resources and projects starting up. So yeah, we have a positive view of the market and demand.
Mm. And I guess that the main challenge, you touched upon it briefly in the end here, recruiting and net recruitment going forward. We hear that from many companies, it's the main challenge to meet the high demand. How are you working on that practically to be a strong brand and to attract talent? We started a new model actually from January, where we actually hired a central resource to work with sourcing and to assist our subsidiaries with recruiting issues. So that's good. At least our processes and our interviews and the things that we can control in that way, we should be excellent at that. But of course, attracting people even to come and listen to us is also a question, like you mentioned, of brand building and being visible. So we are, working on doing more with that. We're launching a new website, and we are thinking hard about some messaging that can put us more on the map. We have to work across the board with this. And of course, also internally to use all our available resources, like all our employees should be aware of, our hiring needs, and
We have just done an internal campaign to remind everybody that we have a cross-company recruiting bonus. So if you work in the defense sector and you find a candidate for the banking consulting side, you also get a reward for that. So we're trying to do everything we can to stick out and use what we have.
Okay, I see. It's a challenging task. And then just a really final question from my side. Typically in a downturn, which we saw in the pandemic and COVID last year, the non-cyclical sectors and the public sector tends to hold up relatively well. But then post a downturn, you see that the cyclical end market is coming back and the public side is coming down a little bit slower. Do you see any signs of slower demand or lower demand from the public side, or are they still keeping up at a high pace right now?
Yeah, we haven't really seen anything like that. I mean, our plus 20% in defense, I would say, unfortunately, our nation's situation is such that we need to keep putting resources into our national security, of course, and with that comes all the cybersecurity and the other, projects within the defense sector that we see will continue for a long time in the future. We also see that we have good public financing, public finances still. So we have really, and when it comes to e-health, I think the activity is actually picking up because that sector was a bit paralyzed by the sort of acute COVID situation, and some of the necessary IT developments and improvements didn't get done. So I think some of it will increase actually.
Okay, interesting. Thank you very much, Åsa. I think that was the time that we had together. Very good presentation. And for everyone listening in, feel free to reach out either to me or to Åsa at CAG Group for further questions.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Daniel, and thanks everybody for listening. And do have a look at our website if you wish. And there's also a podcast actually out on Spotify and SoundCloud that you can listen into if you search for Investeraren. Okay.
Yes. Thank you very much, Åsa.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye-bye.